less experienced, less expensive attorneys will do the initial research to find applicable case law on an issue, which is then provided to a more experienced attorney for analysis. Commercially available software packages are often used to implement billing and collection systems. Communications. Attorneys understand that to be successful, they need to maintain a good reputation and a good relationship with their clients. Most law firms market through word of mouth, although some are now resorting to advertising. Most people have an understanding of what an attorney does, which means they need to communicate less or explain less. Cash flow. People expect to pay for an attorney's services. However, this does not mean an attorney can ignore issues of cash flow. Very often, services are not invoiced until the end of the month during which they are provided, and clients often delay paying attorneys' fees. It is not uncommon for 90 or 120 days to pass from the time an invoice for services is sent out until receipt of payment. In the meantime, the attorney's payroll must be met and bills paid. Again, this is oversimplified, yet it does explain why people such as attorneys, accountants, medical doctors, dentists, plumbers, electricians, truck drivers, cab drivers, and babysitters may have an easier time setting up a business. There is a market in need of their services and willing to pay for their services. For professionals such as school teachers and social workers, the road to becoming highly paid self-employed entrepreneurs may be a little tougher. It can be done, yet it is a sad reality that someone will be more likely to hire and pay money for the services of a self-employed attorney than a self-employed school teacher. One reason why highly educated people such as my poor dad, a school teacher, suffer as entrepreneurs is that their professional education does not prepare them for multiple levels of the BI triangle. Many people, such as firemen, nurses, librarians, or secretaries, are trained to perform essential services, but not the services required by the 5 elements of a business. Before they quit their job, I strongly recommend they do their homework. You do not have to be first. Many people think Thomas Edison was the first person to invent the electric light bulb, which helped him found General Electric. The facts are, he was not the first. Records show that he was actually 23rd on the list of people who invented working light bulbs. So why does history recognize Edison as the inventor, and why did his company become one of the biggest in the world? The answer is found in his life, in the BI triangle, and in the 5 components of a business. Edison was born in 1847. From ages 12 to 15, he worked on the railroad selling snacks and printing his own newspaper. From 15 to 22, he worked for the telegraph company. In 1869, at age 22, he received his first patent. In 1876, he constructed his own laboratory in New Jersey. In 1878, he invented the tinfoil phonograph. In 1879, he invented electric light. In 1882, he installed a complete electrical system in New York City. Communications. Raise money. You may notice that instead of attending school from the ages of 12 to 15, Edison worked in sales. He would go up and down the train selling candy and a newspaper he printed. He was working on the communications level. When I left the Marine Corps in 1974, my rich dad said, "You must get a job in sales." Being able to sell is the basic skill of all entrepreneurs. I went to work for the Xerox Corporation and suffered for 2 years because I was shy and I hated rejection. But by 1977 and 1978, I was consistently in the top 5 of all salespersons. Today, I meet many wannabe entrepreneurs who have a great idea for a new product or new business. The problem for most of them is that they cannot sell, which means they cannot raise money. The inability to raise money may be the number one reason why most wannabe entrepreneurs give up and go back to their jobs. Cash flow. Develop your ability to sell. If you cannot sell, you cannot be an entrepreneur. If you cannot sell, you cannot raise money. If the thought of sales terrifies you, get a job at a department store and begin there. Or get a job with a company like Xerox that requires that you go around to businesses and knock on doors. As your courage increases, you may want to try a company in network marketing or direct sales that is willing to train you. An entrepreneur raises money from friends and family, banks and organizations that support entrepreneurs, customers, suppliers, investors, public markets. I have read books about Edison that say his ability to sell allowed him to have a constant stream of venture capital flowing into his projects. They say he was ahead of his time in understanding and integrating the concepts of self-promotion. His ability to self-promote is one of the reasons he was credited for being the first to invent the electric light bulb when, in reality, he was number 23. Cash flow. Develop your ability to sell. Typically, the person who raises the money or puts up the money to start the business owns the lion's share of the business. So learn how to sell and keep learning. For me, learning to sell was much like learning to drive race cars. It was my own fear that I had to overcome. I am saddened by the fear in the eyes of people who want to be entrepreneurs but are afraid of selling. Legal. Protect your asset. In 1869, Thomas Edison received his first patent at the age of 22. He was doing his job by legally protecting his asset. Later in this book, I will go into why this step is so important for any entrepreneur. Systems. Control the network. By working for the telegraph company, Thomas Edison learned to understand the power of a system. That is why, when inventing his electric light bulb, he was also designing the electrical system that would power his light bulbs. If he had not worked for the telegraph company, he might not have known the importance of this system. Another word for system is network. That is why the richest people on earth control networks such as television networks, radio networks, gasoline networks, network marketing networks, and distribution networks. A big difference between a small business owner and a big business owner is the comprehension of the importance of a system or a network. Our success at the Rich Dad Company is largely due to network systems. For example, our publisher distributes our books through their network system of booksellers, and our radio shows travel through the airwaves of radio networks. Do your homework. As you can tell, this overly simplifies the importance of making sure that all 5 components of the BI triangle are functioning well. Once again, if one or more of the 5 components is not being done, the business suffers. If an entrepreneur designs a business and forgets one of the 5 elements, the business suffers or even fails. The business succeeds or fails before there is a business. That is why it is important to do your homework, even if it means working for free. As this book goes on, we will further develop the BI triangle. Before you quit your job, it is important to look deeper into each component of the BI triangle. This does not mean you have to be an expert at each level. This does mean that, as an entrepreneur, you do not have just one level. You have 5 levels. So, before quitting your job, spend a little time learning more about each level. Rich Dad's Entrepreneurial Lesson Number 4: Success Reveals Your Failures. Chapter 4: Street Smarts versus School Smarts. Good grades in the real world. If I do well in school, will I do well in the real world? I asked my rich dad. That depends upon what you define as the real world. The BI triangle became more meaningful to me after my poor dad shut down his ice cream franchise. He was in his 50s when he took his early retirement money and life savings and lost it all. Instead of rebounding, which many entrepreneurs do after the loss of a business, my dad seemed to go downhill. Rather than start a new business, he took a job as the head of the teachers union and went after his ex-boss, the governor of Hawaii, demanding better wages and benefits for teachers. Rather than learning from his mistakes and becoming a better entrepreneur, he once again became an employee and an advocate for employee rights. One reason why he did not rebound was because he was out of money. Instead of learning to raise capital for his next business venture, he just took a job. He went back to the world of employees where he felt more comfortable. In effect, he went back to doing what he knew, working for and saving money, rather than learning something new, such as how to raise money. My education continues. Realizing that it was the lack of skill in the communications level that brought my dad down, I applied for a job in sales at IBM and the Xerox Corporation. It was not the paycheck, but the sales training that I was applying for.